Have you ever felt like the whole world was watching, waiting for you to prove you're more than what they see? That's where Maya Reed was, standing in the middle of the Starlight Hotel's charity gala, holding a tray of sparkling juice glasses. The room was alive with the soft clink of glasses and the hum of voices from people in fancy clothes. Chandeliers glowed above, casting light on tables covered in white cloths. Maya, 23, with her blonde hair tied back tight, moved through the crowd in her white shirt, red waistcoat, and black pants. Her waitress uniform was neat, even after hours of work. Her feet hurt, her smile stayed on, but her mind was somewhere else, on her dreams of nursing school, on the bills stacking up, on a life she wanted but couldn't quite grab. Maya was an orphan, raised in foster homes, always fighting to be more than a name on a paper. Working at the Starlight wasn't fancy, but it kept her going. Tonight's gala was a big deal. The ballroom was packed with the city's richest people, men in sharp suits, women in dresses that shone like the lights above. Maya moved through them, offering drinks, dodging elbows, and catching bits of talk about money, trips, and charities they didn't really care about. She didn't fit in here, not really, but she knew how to keep her head down and her tray steady. Across the room, Theo Vance, the 45-year-old billionaire hosting the gala, stood on a small stage. He was tall, with dark hair touched with gray, his suit fitting him perfectly. His voice was smooth and strong as he talked about the cause, clean water for far-off towns. "We're here to change lives," he said, his eyes moving over the crowd, "but change needs action, not just money." People nodded and clapped, but Maya could tell some were only here to look good. She liked Theo's words, even if she didn't trust the flashy scene around her. There was something about him. Charm, yes, but also a hint of something deeper, like he was looking for something more in this room full of wealth. Maya's tray was almost empty when her coworker, Jen, bumped her arm. "Look at him. Theo Vance. Worth billions, but he's got that lonely look," Jen said, nodding toward the stage. Maya glanced over, catching Theo's eyes for a split second before he looked away. Lonely? Maybe. She knew that look, hiding an empty spot no amount of money could fill. She pushed the thought away, focusing on her job. Dreams didn't pay the rent, and she wasn't here to guess about billionaires. The night dragged on, and Maya's legs ached from circling the room. She was picking up empty glasses from a table when Theo stepped off the stage. The crowd parted as he moved, shaking hands, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Then, out of nowhere, he stopped at her table. "You're working hard tonight," he said, his voice low, almost playful. Maya froze, her hands tight on the tray. "Just doing my job, sir," she said, keeping her tone polite but firm. He tilted his head, looking at her like she was a puzzle. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya Reed," she answered, meeting his eyes. She wasn't going to shrink, no matter who he was. "Maya," he said like he was testing the word. "You ever think about more than this?" He waved a hand at the room, the gala, her uniform. Her stomach twisted. Was he making fun of her? "Every day," she said, her voice steady even as her face got warm. "But thinking doesn't pay the bills." Theo's smile grew, but it wasn't mean. "Good point," he said. "Let's see if you're as sharp as you look." Before she could answer, he turned to the crowd, his voice louder now. "Everyone, I've got a little game to make things fun." The room went quiet, heads turning. Maya's heart started pounding as people looked at her. What was he doing? Theo stepped closer, his voice carrying that same playful edge. "I'm going to say a sentence, a hard one. If anyone here can repeat it back to me, word for word, I'll make them a millionaire." The crowd gasped, then started whispering, some excited, others laughing. Maya's grip on her tray got tighter. $1 million? It sounded like a fairy tale, a trick for rich people who didn't need it. But Theo's eyes found hers again, and he said, "Let's start with you, Maya. Want to try?" Her mouth went dry. The ballroom felt smaller, the lights brighter, the air heavier. She wasn't here to play games. She was here to work, to survive. But everyone was staring, and Theo's challenge hung there like a dare. $1 million could change her life. Nursing school, a real place to live, a chance to stop scraping by. She thought of her foster home days, studying by flashlight, promising herself she'd be more than her past. Could she really walk away from this? "I'm not here to play," she said, her voice softer than she wanted. The crowd stirred, some chuckling, others whispering. Theo raised an eyebrow, not backing off. "No playing," he said. "Just memory. One sentence. Say it back, and I'll make you a millionaire." His tone was light, but his eyes were serious, like he was looking for something real in her. Maya's mind raced. She didn't trust him, not completely. Billionaires didn't just give away money for tricks. But there was something in his look, something that said this wasn't just a game for him either. She set her tray down, the glasses clinking softly. The crowd leaned in, their whispers fading. Maya stood straighter, her blonde hair shining, her red waistcoat snug. She wasn't just a waitress tonight. She was Maya Reed, the girl who'd fought for everything she had. "Okay," she said, her voice clear now, cutting through the tension. "Say it." Theo's smile flickered, like he hadn't expected her to agree. He leaned in a bit, his voice slow and clear, each word a challenge meant just for her. The room seemed to hold its breath. Maya's heart thumped, but she kept her eyes on Theo. She didn't know what he was going to say, but she knew she couldn't back down. Not now. Not with everyone watching, not with $1 million on the line. She thought of her dreams, the nursing school pamphlets hidden in her tiny apartment, the late nights she'd spent working and studying. She'd always been sharp, always remembered things, orders, faces, facts from books. Could she remember this, whatever it was? Theo's eyes stayed on hers, and she felt the weight of the moment, like it was more than just a sentence, more than just money. The crowd was silent now, waiting. Maya's hands were steady, but her mind was racing. She didn't know why Theo picked her, why he was doing this. Was it a joke? A test? Or something else? She thought of the foster homes, the times she'd been told she'd never amount to anything. She'd proved them wrong before, and she could do it again. Her red waistcoat felt like armor now, her blonde hair a small rebellion against the plainness of her life. She was ready, or at least she told herself she was. Theo's voice cut through the silence, clear and deliberate, each word landing like a stone. The sentence was coming, and Maya knew it would be hard, something meant to trip her up. But she wasn't going to let it. She was Maya Reed, and she'd fought for every step she'd taken. This was just one more step, one more fight. The chandeliers glowed above, the crowd watched, and Theo's eyes never left hers. She stood there, ready to hear the words, ready to prove she was more than what they saw. Theo's voice cut through the silence, clear and deliberate, each word landing like a stone. In the maze of what people chase, where dreams smash into the endless tick of time, only a tough heart finds its true way. The sentence was long and tricky, like something from an old book, not a game at a fancy gala. Maya Reed stood frozen, her red waistcoat snug, her blonde hair pulled back tight, her hands still on the tray she'd set down. The Starlight Hotel's ballroom felt still, the crowd's eyes locked on her, waiting for her to stumble. The chandeliers glowed above, casting light on the faces of rich guests, some smirking, others leaning forward, curious. Maya's heart thumped hard. The words bounced around in her head, hard to hold on to. Maze. Dreams. Tick of time. Tough heart. True way. She repeated them silently, her lips barely moving, trying to keep them straight. She was 23, just a waitress, not some scholar. Why was Theo doing this? His gaze was steady, not mean, but like he was testing her, looking for something she didn't even know she had. The crowd started whispering, their voices mixing into a low buzz. "She's just a server," a man in a sharp suit said nearby, his tone smug. "She'll never get it," a woman added, her laugh quick and sharp. Maya's stomach twisted, but she pushed the feeling down. She wasn't here to be laughed at. Her mind went back to her childhood, moving between foster homes, sleeping in unfamiliar beds, always staying alert. She'd always had a sharp memory. It was how she got through school, memorizing science facts by flashlight, how she remembered every order at the Starlight without a notepad. She could still list every drink from her shift yesterday. Orange juice for table 4, sparkling water for table 9. But this wasn't a diner order. This was a billionaire's challenge, with $1 million on the line. That kind of money could pay for nursing school, clear her bills, give her a real shot at the life she dreamed of since she was a kid. She couldn't let herself choke now. Theo stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking on the shiny floor. The chandelier's light caught the gray streaks in his dark hair. "Take your time, Maya," he said, his voice calm but with a playful edge, like he was daring her to try. "No rush. Just say it back." His words made her mad. Did he think she couldn't do it? She didn't trust him. Rich people didn't just give away millions for repeating words. There had to be a catch. But the way he looked at her, steady and curious, made her wonder if this was more than a game. Maybe he saw something in her, something worth testing. Or maybe he was just toying with her for fun. She closed her eyes for a second, shutting out the bright lights, the crowd's stares, the weight of her uniform. She pictured the sentence like a list, each word a step she had to take. Maze. Dreams. She whispered them to herself, piecing them together, her voice so soft no one could hear. The crowd got restless, their whispers growing louder. A woman in a shiny dress shifted in her seat, her earrings glinting. "She's not gonna make it," she said to her friend, her voice low but clear. "Poor thing's out of her depth," the friend replied, her tone sharp and smug. Maya's hands tightened on the tray, her knuckles white. Pity hurt worse than laughter. She'd spent her whole life fighting to be more than poor thing. Her eyes snapped open. She wasn't here to let these people look down on her. She'd worked too hard, fought too long, to be dismissed by strangers who didn't know her story. She stood taller, her blonde hair catching the light, her red waistcoat fitting snugly. "I'm ready," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, clear and strong. The crowd went quiet, surprised, their heads turning. Theo raised an eyebrow, his smile small but real, like he hadn't expected her to step up like this. "Go on then," he said, crossing his arms, daring her to prove him wrong. Maya took a deep breath, her hands steady now, her mind locking onto the sentence like it was the only thing in the room. "In the maze of what people chase," she started, her voice soft but sure, each word clear. The crowd leaned in, some looking doubtful, others curious, their eyes fixed on her. "Where dreams smash into the endless tick of time." She paused, the words feeling right, like puzzle pieces clicking together. "Only a tough heart finds its true way." She finished, her voice solid, her eyes locked on Theo's. The room went silent, the air heavy, everyone waiting for what came next. Theo's face stayed calm, but his eyes widened just a bit, a flicker of surprise breaking through. The crowd burst into whispers, some clapping, others looking shocked. "Did she get it right?" a woman asked, turning to her neighbor. "No way," a man said, shaking his head, his voice sharp with disbelief. Maya's heart raced, her hands clenching at her sides. Had she missed a word? Said something wrong? The sentence had felt perfect, like she'd nailed every piece, but now doubt crept in, tightening her chest. Theo raised his hand, and the room went quiet again. He stepped closer, his eyes still on hers, searching. "That was almost perfect," he said, his voice slow, dragging out the moment. Maya's stomach sank. Almost? What did that mean? Had she messed up? The crowd buzzed again, some sounding excited, others confused. She wanted to speak, to ask what she'd gotten wrong, but her throat felt tight, like the words were stuck. She'd put everything into that sentence, every bit of her focus, her hope, her grit. And now it felt like it wasn't enough. But Theo's smile came back, sharper now, like he was enjoying the tension. "Let's do it again," he said, his voice carrying a challenge that made her skin prickle. "One more time, Maya. Say it back, exactly like I did." The crowd gasped, some laughing nervously, others whispering about how tough this was. Maya's mind spun. Again? Was he playing with her? She thought of her dreams, nursing school, a small apartment that wasn't falling apart, a life where she didn't have to count every penny. $1 million could make that real. She wasn't just a waitress in a red waistcoat. She was Maya Reed, the girl who'd fought for every scrap of her life, who'd memorized textbooks in the dark, who'd never backed down from a challenge. "I can do it," she said, her voice loud and clear, cutting through the ballroom's hum. The crowd went still, their whispers fading, every eye on her. Theo's smile grew, and for the first time, she saw something new in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or something deeper, something that said this moment was bigger than money. Her voice was steady as she repeated Theo Vance's tricky sentence perfectly. In the maze of what people chase, where dreams smash into the endless tick of time, only a tough heart finds its true way. The words came out clear, each one landing just right, like she'd known them forever. The crowd held its breath, every eye locked on her, the air thick with tension. Theo's face, usually so calm and controlled, showed a flicker of shock, his eyes widening for a split second. He stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking on the shiny ballroom floor, and nodded slowly. "That's it," he said, his voice low but strong, cutting through the heavy silence. "Perfect." The ballroom exploded into noise. People clapped, some cheered loudly, others whispered in disbelief, their voices mixing into a chaotic hum. "She did it," a woman in a sparkly dress gasped, her tone sharp with surprise. "A waitress?" a man in a tuxedo muttered, shaking his head like he couldn't believe it. Maya's chest felt tight, her mind spinning so fast she could barely keep up. $1 million. It was real. The thought hit her like a wave. Nursing school, a real home, a life where she didn't have to count every penny to survive. It was all within reach now, right there in front of her. But Theo's eyes stayed on her, intense and searching, like he saw something more than just a winner in a game. The crowd's noise faded as he raised a hand, quieting the room with a single motion. "Maya Reed," he said, his voice clear and strong, ringing out over the ballroom, "you've just won $1 million." The room erupted again, even louder this time, with applause that echoed off the high ceilings. People stood, clapping, some cheering, their voices blending into a roar. Maya's knees felt shaky, like they might give out, but she stood tall, her hands steady at her sides. $1 million. It was more money than she'd ever dreamed of, more than she'd ever thought possible for someone like her, a 23-year-old orphan, a waitress scraping by. But something in Theo's look told her this wasn't the end of the story. He wasn't done with her yet, and she could feel it in the way his eyes held hers, like he was waiting for something more. He stepped closer, so close she could see the gray streaks in his dark hair, the faint lines around his eyes. His voice dropped, soft enough that only she could hear over the fading applause. "I want to know why you fought so hard for this," he said, his tone serious, not teasing anymore. "Tell me your story, Maya." The crowd leaned in, their whispers softening, curious to hear what she'd say. Maya's throat tightened. Her story wasn't something she shared with anyone. It was raw, heavy, full of pain she kept locked away, foster homes, late night studying, dreams she held onto despite everything. But Theo's gaze was steady, not judging, like he really wanted to understand who she was. She took a deep breath, her hands clenching for a moment before relaxing. "I grew up in foster homes," she said, her voice soft but clear, carrying across the quiet room. "I moved around a lot, never stayed anywhere long. I learned to remember everything, schoolwork, faces, orders, because it was all I had to hold on to. I want to be a nurse, to help people, to give back to the kind of people who helped me when I was a kid. But bills and long shifts keep getting in the way. I took your challenge because I had to prove I'm more than this." She gestured at her uniform, the white shirt and red waistcoat, her voice steady even though her throat felt tight. "I'm more than what people see when they look at me." The crowd was silent now, their faces softening. Some nodded, like they understood, others looked moved, their eyes glistening under the chandelier light. A woman in a blue dress wiped her cheek, her expression soft. A man in a suit nodded slowly, his arms crossed but his face thoughtful. Maya felt exposed, like she'd peeled back a layer of herself for everyone to see, but she didn't regret it. She'd told the truth, and it felt right, even if it was hard. Theo's face changed, a shadow of something personal crossing his eyes. Loneliness, maybe, or recognition of her struggle. "I see," he said quietly, almost to himself, like her words had hit something deep inside him. He stepped back, turning to the crowd, his voice louder now, strong and clear. "This is why we're here tonight," he said, his words carrying over the room. Not just to raise money, but to lift up people like Maya, who fight for their dreams no matter what stands in their way. The crowd nodded, some clapping softly, their faces showing respect now, not pity. Theo turned back to Maya, his eyes locking on hers again. "I've got another challenge for you," he said, his voice firm but warm. "I'm building an app to connect volunteers with people who need help. Schools, clinics, food drives, places that need real change. I need someone with heart to lead it, someone who knows what it means to fight. Maya, if you take this on, I'll fund it and you'll run it. This isn't just about $1 million. It's about making a difference." Maya's breath caught in her throat. Led a project? She was a waitress, not a leader. She'd never run anything, never been in charge of more than a dinner shift. But Theo's words stirred something inside her, a spark she hadn't felt before. She thought of the kids in foster homes, the ones like her, who needed someone to believe in them. She thought of the families she wanted to help as a nurse, the communities she'd seen struggle in the news, the ones Theo's app could reach. $1 million could change her life, but this could change the world. Her mind raced, picturing a life where she wasn't just surviving, but building something bigger, something that mattered. She looked at Theo, his gray-flecked hair catching the light, his eyes steady and sure, like he believed in her more than she believed in herself. The crowd waited, their whispers gone, the room so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. "I'll do it," she said, her voice strong, no hesitation, no doubt. The words felt right, like they'd been waiting to come out. The crowd burst into applause, louder than before, some standing, their cheers filling the ballroom, warm and bright. Maya stood there, her red waistcoat still snug, her blonde hair still tied back, but she felt different, like she was stepping into a new version of herself. Months passed and the app came to life. It was simple but strong, connecting volunteers to communities that needed them, schools that needed books, clinics that needed hands, food drives that needed hearts. Maya threw herself into it, working late nights, learning fast, her sharp mind and big heart guiding every step. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She traded her red waistcoat for a blazer, her dreams no longer out of reach. She sat in meetings, made plans, and talked to people across the country, figuring out how to make the app work better, reach further. It wasn't easy. She made mistakes, stayed up too late, doubted herself sometimes, but she kept going, driven by the thought of kids like her, people who needed a chance. The app grew fast, helping thousands, then millions. Schools got supplies, families got clean water, communities got stronger. Maya traveled to see the impact, meeting kids who reminded her of herself, bright, tough, fighting for more. She met volunteers who thanked her, their eyes shining with pride. Theo was there through it all, not just giving money but guiding her, sharing ideas over late-night calls. She learned his story too, how his wealth hadn't filled the empty spaces, how he'd spent years chasing meaning, feeling alone in a world of luxury. They built a bond, not love, but something real, two people who understood each other's struggles, who pushed each other to be better. Years later, Maya stood at another gala, this time on the stage, not serving drinks but speaking. Her blonde hair was still tied back, her voice steady as she shared stories of lives changed. Kids reading their first books, families drinking clean water, communities standing taller. She was a nurse now, working part-time, and a leader, running an app that had become a movement. The crowd listened, their faces full of awe, some wiping tears, others nodding along. Theo stood in the back, his hair grayer, his smile quiet but proud. He wasn't the focus tonight, but Maya felt his presence, like a steady hand at her back. She finished her speech, her voice strong, telling the crowd about a little girl she'd met, a foster kid who'd gotten a scholarship because of the app, who wanted to be a doctor. The crowd clapped, their cheers loud and warm, filling the room. Maya caught Theo's eye, giving a small nod, a silent thank you for the challenge that changed her life. He nodded back, his smile soft, like he knew what this moment meant. The crowd didn't know the whole story, the sentence, the $1 million, the leap of faith, but they felt its weight. It was the legacy of a waitress who proved herself, and a billionaire who saw her heart, a legacy that would outlive them both. That was today's story. If it moved you, hit that like button, share it with a friend who appreciates a powerful twist, and subscribe for more cinematic tales that linger long after the screen fades. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.